Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Practical Law. My name is Attorney Troy Tyson. I am an attorney practicing in the state of Indiana. As always, the information I'm going to give you here tonight is not intended to constitute legal advice, and nor is it intended to establish any type of attorney-client relationship. I want to talk about a question that I get very frequently in my family law cases, and it usually comes from dads, and that is the system, are the courts, are judges biased against fathers and in favor of mothers? Comes up very frequently in my practice. And so I'd like to help answer that tonight, give you some insights on that in case you're a father in that situation, or perhaps you just know a man who's going through a custody fight. Maybe this can be helpful to them. So let me start by saying that in court, as with every aspect of life, whether it's school, work, sports, your personal relationships, whatever, there's a huge variety of experience, right? There's different people, different mentalities, different personalities, different backgrounds, different biases. So you can't really speak generally towards about a subject, of this importance. You can't speak too broadly. Right. I have practiced in front of innumerable judges, innumerable courts in every county imaginable. And so I have a lot of experience with a lot of different judges, and they're all over the place. Right. I've seen some judges who I felt were very much in favor of mom. I've been in front of some judges that I felt were very strongly in favor of father and against mom. So the experiences are all across the spectrum. I will say this, though, in general, again, I've been in front of innumerable judges. In general, the vast majority of judges, 90% in my experience or so, try to do the right thing. They take their job seriously, and that is to be a neutral arbiter and just take the evidence in front of them and make the best decision, the most equitable decision from that standpoint. I find that the vast majority of judges do exactly that, or they try to do exactly that. We're all human. We all have our biases, our prejudices, and that's going to creep in some way. But most judges try to do the right thing, and I have found them to be mostly neutral and leaning heavily on the evidence to make their determinations rather than any preconceived bias or anything along those lines. So that's number one. Number two, a lot of dads, when they sense bias, it's not necessarily bias that they're sensing from the court. It's mom is typically, very often in a much better position when she gets to court. A lot of times moms are the ones who are filing the cases, so they have the advantage there. But more than that, in many of the cases, I would say probably the vast majority of cases that I see, whether it's divorce or custody, mom is usually the ones who is signing the child up for extracurriculars, who's setting the doctor's appointments, who is taking the child to the doctor's appointments, who's helping the child with the homework. She's the one a lot of times who's meeting with the teacher. She's the one a lot of times if there's therapy involved, she's the much more aggressive party, the more diligent party about setting that up and taking it seriously. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of dads, for whatever reason, there are a multiplicity of reasons. A lot of dads just kind of hang back when it comes to that day-to-day decision-making, day-to-day management of the household or of the child's life, and they leave that to mom. And they focus on just being a great dad and just being there for their children and just, if he needs me, call me, or just spending time with them. And that's wonderful. That should be the goal of every father. But a lot of times that's not really enough when you get to court. And moms who walk in with not only having spent considerable time with the child, but also manage the child's life, they have a significant upper hand when it comes to judges and judges' perception of custody and parenting time. And so it doesn't make dads bad guys in that situation. It just, it kind of telegraphs to the judge that, hey, dad is here, but I'm the one who's really running things. And therefore the child should be with me. Therefore I should continue to be able to make decisions, all of that. So take that seriously and take that into consideration if you're a dad who's in a custody battle or who might be heading into one, that spending time with your child is great. Definitely do that. Obviously, if you're not spending time with your child, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. So start spending time with your child. Assuming you're spending time with your child, go the extra mile and be actively involved in those decisions. Show up for those doctor's appointments, help schedule them, show up for the extracurricular activities and the after school activities, help schedule them, help the child prepare, be involved in any religious training that your family may be involved in. Be actively involved in those kinds of things, because if you do, and you can convey that to the court, first of all, you're going to stand out, because most dads, in my experience at least, are not doing that to the same extent as mom, number one. And number two, you're going to put yourself on a much more equal footing with mom when it comes to the court and their consideration of you. The third thing is, child support. It's a big issue, a big issue for fathers. And a lot of times dads will get hit with the child support obligation, and then all of a sudden, they have to pay out $150 a week. And the way they look at it is, the court is sanctioning me. The court is biased against mom, and therefore everybody just wants my money. And, yesterday I didn't have to pay anything. Now I've got to pay $150 a week, $200 a week, whatever. And that's the wrong way of looking at it. And I have to educate dads on this consistently. If you bring a child into the world in Indiana, and I'm certain that it's the same in your state, wherever you may be located, you are financially obligated to take care of that child, right? You're legally obligated to financially support that child. And so what happens is, when you have a custody case and child support is being calculated, what the court does is look at both parties, and they'll typically run a worksheet or a calculation, and they'll say, this is what it's going to require from each party for each party to equally support that child financially. And usually the child is with mom. Usually the child lives with mom. So mom is paying for housing, for clothing, for food, transportation, all the other incidentals that just come as a part of, living. Mom is usually already paying that, and dad isn't paying anything a lot of times. So what the court does is it runs these numbers and it says, okay, mom is already providing all of this. This is the weekly payment we need from dad in order to equal things out. And that's the proper way to look at it. And that doesn't seem so harsh at all. But dads don't look at it that way. They often look at it as, I'm just getting saddled with $100 or $150 a week obligation, as if it comes out of nowhere. So if you're a father in that situation, have a real understanding, a reasonable understanding of how child support is calculated, because that's going to serve you well when you head into court, okay? And that doesn't mean the court's biased against you. That means the court's just trying to find a way to make both parents take care of the child in as fair a way as possible, all right? So keep all those things in mind. If you're facing a custody battle, or if you know someone, a dad who is facing a custody battle, hopefully that's helpful to you or to them. If this information has been valuable to you, please consider subscribing. We're going to be producing good legal content, interesting information, insights, interviews on a regular basis every week. So definitely consider subscribing to our channel, and we'll look to see you in the next episode.